Hello, trading friends, and welcome back to Forex Focus, brought to you by IG. Taking a look at the developing story in the Turkish economy. They recently had another inflation print that was supposed to be a little bit lower than it came in at, and thus the Turkish lira continues to depreciate. The Turkish economy stakeholders, presidents, central bankers, everybody trying to figure out how they can calm this inflation. And for the time being, it's been extraordinarily high inflation, extraordinarily high interest rates, and an extraordinarily devalued currency. We'll look at all of that in just a second, but let's start with the recent price action around dollar lira. And this is not a broken chart, my friends. This is a stair step higher for dollar, lower for the Turkish currency, and saw some new highs for USD and lows for the lira after this most recent inflationary print. Not a huge move on the same day as this inflation came out, a gain of 0.6% and now trading above 31.50. Which might not mean a lot to you right now, but when you see some historical prices, you'll see that that is quite an extraordinary sum in lira that you could get for your US dollar relative to 5 years ago. But yeah, some pretty crazy recent price action. You see an overwhelming amount of just days higher for this dollar relative to this lira, and there's a lot baked into that. The swap rates, the overnight rates for this market right now are, as you'll see, with the higher interest rates in Turkey, are overwhelmingly costly to be long that dollar and short that Turkish lira, but almost in the same way that a stock that you're long depreciates theoretically by the amount of dividend that's paid out. This market has been increasing almost by that exact amount of the overnight rate. But I don't want to go too deep because there's so much to work through on this story. Let's talk a little bit about the inflationary piece, because a similar setup, stair-stepping higher, the annual inflation rate in Turkey. And if you thought it was bad in the U.S. or Canada or the Euro area or the U.K., wherever, it's been pretty bad here in Turkey, with not only double-digit inflation. You might remember the U.S. got up to 8 or 9% inflation rates at the peak inflation fears more than a year ago. Turkey right now, the most recent print, 67%. Highest level since 2022. Since 2022, it's been worse than this? Yeah, it's been worse than this in Turkey. If you go back to 2022, inflation reached 85%. And I was doing a little bit of digging. As you can see, obviously, in the last decade, these have been pretty much the highest inflation prints that you've seen in Turkey, and some of the highest of a major economy. Keep in mind, Turkey, by GDP standards, is a top 20 economy in the world, and within Europe is a top 7 or 8 economy, I'm pretty sure, given recent GDP numbers from the IMF. But if you do go back to the late 70s and 80s, the last time that globally we saw a spike in inflation, and you look at U.S. inflation at the time, it got to 10 to 15% inflation. Don't quote me on that. It might have been give or take a few percentage points. Maybe it got a little bit higher. Maybe it didn't get up to 15% exactly in that time frame. But in that time frame, Turkey's inflation actually did reach the 60s, 70s, 80s, and I think they even printed triple digits at one point. Which isn't to say this is, a good thing or a normal thing, or they should be seeing this. There's a lot of economic turmoil in Turkey, and political turmoil as well, that's making it hard on the people living there to deal with this. But that is to say that a 60% or 70% or 80% inflation, though it is extreme, It has been seen by Turkey in the past, and you can see their baseline inflation prior to this was in the 10 to 30 range. And so a little bit different than the U.S. This is all to say. And what else is different than the U.S. is their interest rate environment. And this has been recently another piece that it's not only the inflation that's causing this Turkish lira collapse and this economic turmoil in Turkey. It's also a political piece, as the now president Erdogan, he has come in with a very specific plan and brought in a central banker in the last couple of years, who I believe has since retired. But as you can see, the last couple of years, they've brought interest rates from the 5 to 20% range all the way up to 45%. And a lot of analysts in the space thinking that now with this higher inflation that they just got in Turkey, the high inflation print that they just got, they might have to hike even further than 45%. And so there's a lot of people on both sides of this equation thinking this is not the right way to go. Obviously, the president moving full steam ahead with this, and the central bankers there in Turkey seeing some turnover and some turbulence. And I wouldn't blame you. This is a pretty tough problem to solve. 67% inflation and an already 45% interest rate. But that's why that overnight rate, if you are willing to be long that lira that's been getting hit pretty hard, and we'll look at just how hard it's been getting hit in a second, you are getting a better interest rate to be long that lira, even against a U.S. dollar that's had the real piece of U.S. dollar strength in recent years is that it's got one of the highest interest rates of major economies, higher than the U.K., higher than the Euro area, Canada, Australia, Japan, obviously. But Turkey will get you a higher interest rate, but that might be at the loss of your price action in this pair, because you put some more historical data into this dollar lira chart, and it is wild. Almost 800% gains in the dollar against the lira since 2017. This market has gone from your dollar getting you about 5 lira, 3, 4, 5 lira there in 2017, 2018 range, to now in 2024, over 30 lira for your U.S. dollar. And again, you've got that stair-step kind of trajectory of this chart that has increased as Turkish inflation has increased, and also Turkish interest rates increase, and really Turkish economic turbulence has increased. A lot to dissect there, and maybe not the most tradable market by liquidity standards, and again, the crazy difference in overnight rates and the crazy one-sided action that we've been seeing. But a really interesting story that can help you learn a lot about what's going on in Turkey, but also, how economies in general fluctuate. And that's it for the Turkish lira collapse. We'll see if 30 is the place where they take a break here in dollar lira, or if they move on to fresh decade highs. Thanks.